All right, so welcome everyone to the interviewing techniques workshop for seniors. So I hope that this will, teach you some things you probably have not heard yet, but also, provide some really, really valuable information. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen and start the PowerPoint. I ask that you mute as we're going through the PowerPoint, but if you have any questions, I don't mind if you unmute yourself and ask. So that way we don't have to go back to a slide, okay? All right, so again, this is best interviewing techniques to land that job. I thought that was a catchy title because at this point as seniors, that's what you're looking for. Whether you're going to grad school or not, you're still looking for some kind of sustainable employment. And so you're going to be interviewing, and more than likely you will probably be interviewing virtually, which changes the whole thing, right? And even though it may seem easier to interview virtually, actually it may not be, because there's so much that goes into preparing for a virtual interview that could make things a little bit more challenging. So let's get started. So again, we're going to talk about 13 best practice interview techniques, 13 best practice interview techniques. So the first one, acknowledge your weaknesses. At every interviewer or every interview, the interviewer will ask you to identify your weakness. They'll at least say, what is one weakness that you have? I've sat on many, many, many hiring committees. And I tell you that every single one that I've sat at, someone has asked this question. What is your strength, your biggest strength, and what is your weakness? So be prepared to answer. But here's a good example. Identify a weakness that has nothing to do with the job. And then how you're working on it. For example, one of my weaknesses, I get very, very nervous with public speaking. That may not have anything to do with the job that you're applying for. So don't identify a weakness that has to do with the job you're applying for, because that may very well completely just dismiss you from that job. But you want to say something. You can't say I don't have any weaknesses, because that's just humanly impossible. But you want to say a weakness that has nothing to do with the job. So you could say, I don't do, I'm afraid to speak in public, but I'm working on it, because there's some opportunities that I've signed up for, like I've taken a public speaking course, or I've practiced in front of my family, or I'm working with my mentor to have these opportunities so I can improve my public speaking abilities. Something like that. So not only do you provide a weakness, but you provide an answer to how you're working on that weakness. Okay. 2, smile. Many people try to stay serious during an interview. I can't tell you how many interviews I'm looking at the person, I'm like, that person's getting ready to fall apart if they don't at least smile, because it looks like they're getting ready to crack. So a smile is very simple, and it can break the tension and anxiety in the interview, right? But you just want to make sure that your smile is a nice one, though. So definitely suggest, for example, brush your teeth just before an interview, especially if you've had something to eat. You want to make sure that your smile is not distracting. If you need to go to a dentist, please make sure you go to a dentist and make sure that your smile is proper. Men, if you have facial hair, please make sure that your facial hair is nicely trimmed, because that will take away from the smile, because it could be very distracting. Ladies, if you're wearing lipstick to an interview, please make sure it's not a loud lipstick. Make sure it's very toned down, not too dark, not too bright. Make sure it's very natural so it doesn't take away from your smile. But again, make sure that you're looking proper and a nice smile. That's very simple. Another one, prepare for questions that they don't ask for. These questions are meant to see if you can act. Prepare for questions others don't ask. These questions are meant to see if you can act on your feet or can make split decisions in specific situations. For example, have you ever had a boss from hell? You might get a question like that, and it might stun you, because you're like, is this a trick question? It's not a trick question. It's an actual question that someone may very well ask you. And that is because they want to know how you would deal with someone like that. So, be very honest, especially if you have had a boss that has been extremely challenging, you can say, well, this is how I did have a boss like that. This is how I handle situation. If you ended up leaving the job because the person was just impossible to work for, you can very well say that and say, I really try to work with these challenges. It was impossible. So, I put in my 2 weeks notice, gave them the proper notice so they could replace me. And I worked with my manager to make sure that there was a smooth transition. That's it. Let it go. It's over. That's it. But you will be asked questions that you may not think you're going to be asked, and you should be prepared. What you don't want to do, and I'm a facial expression person, a lot of times my husband will say, babe, fix your face, because my expressions when something happens or I see something that's shocking, you'll see me go, so you want to make sure that you keep a demeanor when you're asked a question, that you're sitting back like, no, they didn't just ask me that question. Smile and answer the question. And then that's it. Don't prolong it. Don't make it longer than it needs to be. Next, keep your cool when things go south. Employers may intentionally allow this to happen to see if you will respond appropriately or if you're going to fall apart. For example, an interviewer may ask you, how do you feel about working in an all-male environment, the boys club? Ladies, how would you answer that, right? You'll be like, what? Boys club? Or gentlemen, what if they say, well, we have more than females than males. We call it the drama shop. How do you feel like working in a place like that? So, they just want to see whether you would respond. Well, I can't deal with drama queens. That is not an answer. Even for women, when you're asked, how do you feel about working in a boys club? You can say, well, I'm very confident in my skills that I can fit right in and be part of the team. There you go. You just answered the question. So they just want to see if you're going to fall apart or if you can appropriately answer that question. Because if you say it's an all boys club, I'm so used to that, I know I can deal with it. That's not an appropriate answer. All right. So you got to make sure that you're answering appropriately. Next, get to know the interviewer before the interview. Always ask who will be conducting the interview. So when you're scheduling the interview, you want to find out, can you please let me know who will be conducting the interview? That's because you want to go back and you want to look up the person, so you have something to talk about with that person to make that connection at the interview. So let's say, I'm giving an example of Rutgers University. You're applying to a position in the student success department, in our department, and it's Dr. Basong who's interviewing you. You want to look up Dr. Basong and you want to know something about her that you can make a connection at the interview. So, oh, Dr. Basong, you graduated from such and such a college. That's where I would love to do my graduate work. What did you think about that college? Or Dr. Basong, you've been working at Rutgers for 5 years. How do you like working here? So you want to be able to say something to that interviewer that shows that you have looked. I'm sorry. Thank you. But you don't want to be a stalker. Like, you don't want to say, hey, I see you've been married and have 3 kids. Stalker, no, nothing personal like that. You want to be able to look up the person and have some kind of connection that you can talk about, not something personal. Emphasize your cultural fit. Do your beliefs line up with the company? Before you apply to any company, you want to look up the company and see whether, your beliefs line up with the strategic plan of the company. You don't want to seem overqualified, but be confident that you will fit right in. You must show that you can be part of a team. So you want to make sure that you're coming across like, hey, this person will be a great fit, to our department, as opposed to, you can tell she's a one-man team. She's going to come in here and she's going to be one of those people that likes to work on her own. No job ever wants that. So you want to make sure that, you can talk about, of course, looking up the company, this place of employment before you apply, so that you can see what the culture is like. I see that you guys do conferences on a quarterly basis. What are those like? How can I grow in this company? These are the types of questions you want to bring, because you've looked up the company. So you want to make sure that that you do your homework. Next, use enthusiastic vocabulary. For example, instead of saying it's my job, you say it's my career. If using language that shows teamwork, and always refer to problems as challenges, not problems. And also do not use any type of slang or jargon. Keep this very professional. I ain't dealing with that. No, we're not using that. That would be a challenge to deal with someone who may be difficult. You see how I just changed that? Still meaning the same thing. I ain't dealing with that fool, but we can't say it like that at an interview. You want to make sure that you're coming across professionally and using the correct vocabulary. Finish strong. There will always be a time at the end of the interview when you will be asked if you have any questions. I'm telling you, that's always going to happen. Make sure that you have at least 2 to 3 questions lined up. For example, could you describe the culture of the office? What do I have to look forward to? Another one, is there a flexible work schedule? So you may be applying for a job that says it's 8:30 to 4:30. Is there a flexible work schedule? Like their evening hours? Is the schedule flexible? Another one could be, does the company value a family environment? So is the company, for example, does the company, celebrate someone is having a baby? Oh, that's great. As opposed to, oh, geez, she's going to be gone for 3 months now. You want to know what kind of culture you're walking into, because that lets you know how much of your life you can share with the employment, or how much of your life you can't share. So you want to know what kind of culture you're walking into. And there could be some other questions, but these are 3 short questions you can certainly write and make sure you have them ready. A lot of jobs, will answer even more questions than that. So make sure you have at least 2 of the most questions you really, really want to ask. Then you want to thank the interviewer and show your enthusiasm. Thank you so much for allowing me to be interviewed today. I really enjoyed this interview and I grew just by the questions that you asked me. Thank you so much for that. But then also, you want to say things like, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to meet with me. I know that you're very busy with your position as assistant director, whatever the case is. And then you can also be very enthusiastic in saying, like, to break, the tension. Thank you so much for not laughing at my ridiculous, career goals, because you're always going to be asked, where do you find yourself in 5 years? Well, I would like to have my master's degree by then. I would like to move into, more management positions. I would like to be, looking forward to maybe moving up the ladder and things like that. So, cut the tension. Or you could say something like, thank you so much. This is the nicest interview I've had in a very long time, so, and then only if it's true, but those are some of the things that you can certainly say. And then this is something that happened to me that I was taken back, but it was very nice. Follow up. So after you leave the interview, email a thank you note within an hour. So of course, before the interview, you would have already found out who's going to interview you, especially if it's a committee. They'll say, oh, it's a committee. It's blank, 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 blank. You want to get their names and you want to say, may I have their names and their titles? Someone is always willing to give it to you in the office, the administrative assistant or the secretary. So at least you know who you're going to be interviewed by. After the interview, you want to email them, send them a nice, and not everybody in one. You want to email everyone individually, and you want to make sure that you don't copy and paste the same message to everyone. Make it personal, because they may share and say, oh, guess what? This person sent a very nice thank you note. And when they share the note with their colleague, they got the same exact note. No. You want to make the note short and sweet and personable to that specific interviewer. So if there was 6 people in the committee that interviewed you, you want to send 6, short and sweet emails thanking them for their time and for the interview, and say something specific maybe about the individual. You can even take notes while you're in the interview, and like I've seen it happen. Oh, what's your name? Oh, great. And you write down the person's name, and you can take notes like, this person asked me this person asked me that, and this is the stuff that you can then regurgitate in the thank you email to them. And make sure that you do it within an hour, within 2 hours after the interview, so you're fresh in their minds, and then they see this email coming through, and it's a very nice thing to see. I was taken back when I first received the thank you email, and I was like, wow, that was very nice. And when I spoke to my colleagues, I said, we all got one. Isn't that nice? They took the time to do that. That was very nice for them to do that. And make sure, again, that you email everyone individually, and make sure you have their names correctly and their titles. And then follow up in 3 days, and then maybe a week, and do that consistently until you hear a solid yes or no. There's nothing wrong with calling and asking, have you made a decision? There's nothing wrong, waiting 3 days to do that, because every committee, especially if they're interviewing multiple people, it's going to take about, sometimes they try to get them done in one day, sometimes in a matter of a few days. So you want to give the interview at least 3 days after, and then calling whoever the lead person was and saying, hi, this is so-and-so. I interviewed on Tuesday, March, 9th. Could you tell me the status? Have you made a decision, or are you guys still talking about it? When would be a great time for me to call you back? That would be how you would respond. And then you want to follow up until you receive a yes or no. One thing I will say to you, if you receive a no, don't look at it as something really bad. This is one thing that I learned, which was very nice. We actually had a person who interviewed who got a no, and they actually asked, could you meet with me to let me know why I didn't fit the position? And guess what? That wasn't a bad thing, because the person wasn't like, I can't believe you didn't hire me. I was the best qualified. Because first of all, they don't know, because they don't know who else we would have interviewed. But the person really wanted to know, what could I have done differently at the interview? And it could have been, there was someone more qualified than you, or the way you were dressed was not proper, or, the way that you interviewed, could have been better, because you didn't present yourself very well. So be ready to hear that. And it's okay to hear that, because then you can improve for the next interview. So again, something you may want to ask if the answer is no. Next, keep in touch and add more value. So every communication between you and the administrative assistant or the hiring manager adds value to your word and character. So staying in touch with them and saying, hey, I interviewed, I was just asking to see. Always make sure you get their names, especially the administrative assistant. You mess up with the administrative assistant, your calls are going to, and your messages are going to suddenly get lost. So don't do that. Be respectful. Say, hi, how are you today? Great. I'm glad you're having a great day. I'm so-and-so. I interviewed last week for this position. I was wondering if Mr. Smith is available. That's how you come across. And then, after they say, okay, sure, let me transfer you. Thank you so much. You have a great day. People tend to remember when people are very kind and very nice. You want to come across that way. You can certainly email and mention something great about the company you just read about. So you can email as a follow-up and say, hey, I heard the company just got, just received an award. How awesome is that? It shows that the company is doing great work. There you go. Or you can provide some ideas. Maybe you found something while you were interviewing, and it would be great to say, hey, I met so many wonderful people. I met so-and-so. I didn't even know, that this person was doing this for the company. Wow, that's very interesting. Or maybe there's an article that you read that follows up with what the company is doing, and you can email it to that hiring manager. Listen, I came across this article I thought might be interesting to you. That's it. So always do that extra. The people are going to remember your name. They're going to remember who you were because of how kind and nice you were. And then learn to negotiate. So high performers negotiate an offer. So provided that you get the job, you're going to be given an offer. For every job that you apply to, there's going to be a range. There's going to be, okay, the range is going to be $52,000 to $80,000. That's a range. So you're going to negotiate that when they offer you the position. So high performers negotiate an offer. The company expects this. They expect that you're going to negotiate. So what you want to do is you want to go with, you're not going to say, oh, I want 80,000. I'm telling you, they're not going to give you 80,000. That's the range. So every job has a range. Like, this is the most they will pay. This is the least they will pay. And it goes in between based on your experience. So you're not going to say, well, I want 80,000. They're not going to give that to you. No job ever offers a top, because guess what? If you're at the top, there is nothing else they're going to give you. So in terms of raises, you're always going to be stuck at that amount. So there's no top. So you definitely don't want to go with, I want 80,000. Depending on your experience, you can say, well, you know what? I would be comfortable at 70,000, 72,000, because they're going to come down from that. You don't want to say 52 because that's the lowest, but you definitely don't want to go too low because they're always going to come down from that. So if you say I'd be comfortable at 72, okay, they may come back and say, we can offer you 69.5. There you go. You just negotiated your salary. So you want to make sure that you negotiate, and you want to know the range. of what the pay will be. And you can ask this at the interview, what is the range of the salary for this position? And they'll tell you. But that's not the time to negotiate because you haven't gotten the job. You definitely don't want to ask that at that time because that would put a negative mark on the interview. So in the midst of negotiating, you want to point out why you believe you should make $72,000. Why I have 5 years experience in doing this position. And I believe I'm bringing that to the table. I have a master's degree that I'm finishing up in the next year. So I believe I'm bringing more experience and education to the table. So you also want to know and want to tell them why you're negotiating a specific salary. So I hope that makes sense. I'll tell you this, when I started at Rutgers, March 17th will be 29 years I've been doing this with EOF. When I started at Rutgers, I negotiated my salary. They offered me, the salary range was 27 to 31 as an EOF counselor. I negotiated 29,000. No, I negotiated 30,000. They came back with $29,001. So I did good because the price range was 27,000 to 31,000. And I asked for 30 and they came down with 29 and $1. So I negotiated my salary. So again, really good example because that's what, of course that was 29 years ago. So jobs pay a whole lot more than that now, but you definitely want to negotiate your salary. You got to know that you are worth and you're bringing something to the table. And then you want to close the loop. So there are people you want to thank. So if possible, treat them for coffee, right? So even the person that interviewed you, whether you get the position or not, say, hey, can we meet for coffee? I'd like to pick your brain, about this whole job market if you don't get the job. If you get the job, say, hey, I just want to thank you. Can we meet for coffee? I know there's a Starbucks on your campus. Can we meet at the Starbucks just a few minutes after work? I just want to, buy you some coffee and just thank you. More than likely, they'll say yes. So you want to, you definitely want to thank them. You also want to thank the people that got you to the job. So maybe someone referred you to the position. Maybe someone say, hey, look, did you see this job offer at Rutgers? You really should apply. You want to thank that person, either send them a nice thank you note or, treat them for coffee or something like that. What about, and I just talked about the interviewer, but what about the people who, also interviewed you? You want to make sure you talk to them. You take them out for coffee. What about the person who reviewed your resume? You never submit a resume without having a mentor or someone that you trust, someone whose position you admire, someone like that to look at your resume or look at your cover letter. So those are people you want to thank too, whether you send them a nice thank you note or you take them out for coffee or something like that. A mentor that has been working with you that is helping you navigate through these challenges. That's another person you want to thank. And why should you do this? Because it keeps your network open. It keeps you, from showing people that you appreciate them and that you're grateful for how they're helping you, but also it keeps your network. So if maybe you didn't get this position, that person will remember how grateful you were and will come back and say, hey, did you notice this other company is hiring? You should apply to that. But if you forget the people that helped you get to something, whether you got the job or not, they're more than likely not going to say anything because you didn't even bother to say thank you. So you want to make sure that you close the loop in every job interview that you go to. And that doesn't just include the people at the interview, but it includes the people that helped you to get to that point. All right, so those are the 13 interviewing techniques. But here are some other things that you should consider that you want to think about. Dress for success. We just did that workshop last week, myself and Mr. Jones. It is on the EOF YouTube page. You want to go back and take a look at it. There's a difference between interview attire and office attire. And so we did a very interactive workshop last week that was open to everyone. So you all, if you didn't attend, you missed it, but please go back on the EOF YouTube page and take a look at it. Ms. Ferguson has already uploaded it, and it does include the PowerPoint. So this is not a fashion show, but the first impressions always count. And you want to wear the appropriate clothing to the interview. I can't tell you how many interviews I've sat on and I've been shocked at what some people have worn. And I'll sit there and go, oh my God, somebody really should have helped you with that outfit. Or, wow, that person is sharp. They really took the time, to look very nice for the interview. So you want to make sure that that's, first impressions do count. And it doesn't have to be expensive. We even said in the Dress for Success workshop last week that the Career Center always negotiates some kind of coupon with JCPenney. The one in Cherry Hill is still open. There's a 30% off that they are offering to Rutgers students who want to come into JCPenney and shop. You can certainly go to a clearance section and buy, a nice cardigan, a nice suit jacket to go, and with a nice blouse, skirt. You definitely want to go with darker tones, blue or black. Gentlemen, the same thing. You can certainly find secondhand store, really have some nice out clothes that you can just get dry clean and be sharp as can be. You don't have to spend a whole lot of money, but you definitely always want to have that blue suit or that black suit, with the appropriate attire. But I'm not going to go into further with the Dress for Success. Go back and watch that workshop because it was very, very, very interactive. Mr. Jones even showed how to tie a tie if you didn't know how to do that. So again, and you always want to dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have. One of the things that impresses me about many people at Rutgers that I've worked with throughout the years is the way that they continue to dress. So there's a lot of times I've seen people on campus and I'm like, okay, really, you did not put too much thought into that outfit today. It just didn't seem, collegiate, appropriate. And then there are people that I knew this one person, I never forgot her. She retired already. She always dressed so nice. And I remember I would ask her, like, wow, where did you get that suit? This and that. I never knew she was a darn secretary, but she always dressed so well. And I thought she was an administrator because of the way that she dressed, but she took pride in her job. And a lot of times I would see her at meetings with her boss, and I thought she was like the assistant director. Well, he brought her to meetings because she always dressed for the job that she always wanted, which was an administrative job. So she would get raises, and her title was secretary, but she was making a lot of money as a secretary because of the way that she dressed and the way she carried herself. So that was very impressive. Always dress for the job that you want, not the job that you have. Resumes should be reviewed and printed on linen paper. Please do not print your resume on regular paper. You can certainly go to Staples or any place like that. The paper is very inexpensive, and you can just have them, make 5 or 6. When you go to an interview, especially if you're going physically to an interview, you have to make sure you at least have 10 copies with you. Don't assume that because you applied and uploaded your resume that they have it right there. They may very well say to you, can you please give me your resume? If you don't have that resume in a nice portfolio with you, in a nice briefcase, you're going to sit there and be like, oh my God. There's always going to be between 3 and maybe 6 people at a committee. So you want to make sure you at least have 10 copies of an updated resume, very nicely printed on linen paper, either a light gray or a light tan color, which you see on the screen on this PowerPoint. That's why I picked this background for the PowerPoint, a nice linen paper. And do the same thing with references. Sometimes you'll sit at an interview and they say, could you please give me supply your references? Make sure you have your references right there with you as well. A nice printed linen paper. And then you should also have personal business cards. Make sure that your business cards just include your full name. Don't have any nicknames on it, your full name. Make sure that you have a workable cell phone. Please make sure if they call that cell phone that it's not your voicemail is full. Your voicemail hasn't been set up. You're calling a non-working number. This person has not set up their voicemail. These are the excuses that I've gotten to when I've had to make a phone call about an interview. You don't ever want that. Make sure it's a working number. Make sure your email is a professional email. Make sure that your email, like I've always given the example, the one time a student gave me an email and his email was Rick and he. I'm not emailing anybody at Rick and he. I have no idea where that email is going, who the person is. I'm not doing that. Make sure it's your first initial and your last name. Something like that, very proper. And make sure that the card, make sure it doesn't have any scriptures on it. Make sure if you're going to put some kind of, famous quote, make sure it's an educated, famous quote. Make sure it's not something that's militant or something that is offensive. Make sure it's, a nice quote that's collegiate. You can find those online anywhere. but it could be plain. It could be a plain card. You may have like something in the background or something like that, but make sure it's not flashy. Make sure it's a regular tone, regular color, but make sure that you can certainly provide that to someone that will say, hey, can you provide me with your business card? Business being your personal information. And you can certainly make sure that you have a business card holder. You can find them very cheap at a Walmart. Make sure you have 10 cards in there with you that you can just pass out as they ask you for it. Make sure that you have that for an interview. Be flexible on the start date. So if they provide you a start date, they may say, hey, we're looking to hire somebody within the next month. Are you available? You have to make sure that you're flexible. And immediately, if you're already working, give your employer 2 weeks notice. Say, okay, I just gotten an offer that I cannot refuse. I thank you so much for working here, and I need to put in my 2 weeks notice. Make sure it's written on a nice letter to your supervisor, and make sure you have an end date so that you can then start your new position. So be flexible. They may say, we're looking to hire somebody the first week of January, and it's June. You have to be okay with that if you want the job, because they're looking to transition out of whatever they're doing to bring a new person in. Sometimes jobs will do that. So you have to be flexible with that. Make it the utmost importance to know who the staff is prior to your start date. This may require a stop and meet the staff prior to starting your new position. We had someone that started at Rutgers that asked for this. And I was very impressed with that. I was like, what? He wants to meet the staff before he starts. Like, that was weird. But then when he came, he was very, he came, he wasn't, he was dressed up for the office, not for the interview. So you want to be a little dressed down, but not like you're going to the park, like something you would wear to the office. And he came by, he just wanted to meet everybody and just get to know them. He asked, the manager, he asked Dr. Passon, where will my office be? He wanted to see where his office would be so he can kind of look to see. He even asked her, I'm thinking of, decorating my office. Would that be okay with you? Like, he has all these questions, met the secretary, he brought like a fruit basket. It was so nice. I was like, oh, wow. I was very impressed. And he did this like, I think it was 2 weeks before he started. So that was very nice, that he took the time to come meet everybody. So the first day of employment wasn't awkward. He was like, hey, Caroline, how are you? And I'm like, hey, how you doing? Welcome to the team. So like all the awkwardness was gone because he came almost a month before to meet everybody. And you always ask the hiring manager if you can do that. So I thought that was very nice. Be a team player from day one. There is no I in team. I know that's a cliche. I hate cliches, but this is so appropriate. There is no I in team. When you come across as you know it all, there's no room for correction. There's no room for improvement. You're going to very easily work your way out of a job, and you'll be the most hated person at the job. So you're like going to be very, very, hellish if you stay at a place like that where you become the I person. I like this. I do that. I think we should do this. No. We, what do we think? This could be a great idea. What do we think about that? That's the way to bring out ideas that you own that can come to the team. You want to make sure that's always we. Show up early and leave late. I know sometimes, people will say this and you're like, what? Yes. Make sure that if you're on time, you're late. I know you've heard that before. If you're on time, you're late. If your hours are 8:30 to 5 o'clock, you make sure that you're arriving around 8:20, 8:25, 8:15. Because guess what? Some of us come in with coffee, or we bring our breakfast, to work with us. You turn on your computer. By the time you turn on your computer, you put your bags down, you drink your coffee. You're now into after 8:30, which means you're starting your work after 8:30 when your hours are 8:30 to 5. So come earlier, get yourself settled, situated. If you bring your breakfast, have your breakfast 8:30 sharp, you're ready to start working. Not you're ready to now start putting your stuff down and eat your breakfast. So you want to make sure that you're getting there early, and then you're leaving late. So don't stand at your computer like, okay, it's 5 minutes to 5. All right, let me shut down my computer. Let me put on my coat, because I'm telling you, the boss will not like that. Don't have your coat on and your briefcase or your pocketbook, and you're ready to go out that door 5 o'clock sharp. Let it be 5 after 5, 5:06, 5:07. Do that. Do not leave early. I don't care if it's 2 minutes. I'm telling you, I've seen people do that and it stands out. When you're everybody's leaving at 5, 5:02, 5:03. Someone left that because they were done work and left. You heard their door close and they're out the door and it wasn't 5 o'clock yet. Oh, the boss is not going to like that. And you also have to be flexible because there may be times where, let's say a student is running late. For me, that has happened before. A student has a 4:30 appointment. I get off at 5. They got stuck in traffic. Now it's 10 minutes to 5. I'm not going to tell that student, oh no, you're going to have to reschedule. I got to leave. Now, unless I have a prior engagement and I can't stay, then I would have contacted the student and say, hey, listen, I have an engagement. I can't stay. So why don't we just reschedule? But if I don't and the student is running late, I will see that student. So it might cause me to leave work at 5:15, 5:30. Okay, guess what? That's always going to look good on you in front of your boss that you're willing to be flexible sometimes. So nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean you do it every day, but that people don't know you for, hey, 5 o'clock, you're going to hear her car turn on. No, you don't want to do that. So always plan to come early and leave late. And don't complain. Please don't complain. Help to bring necessary change. So if you see something is not working or it's an issue, maybe someone in the office is always the one that takes advantage of people, or is the one that's always leaving, early, coming in late, and you think no one's noticing. Don't complain about that person, because guess what? Believe me, the boss is looking. But if the job is not getting done because of this person, then you definitely want to be, okay, how can we make sure the phones are being answered when the administrative assistant leaves, or has to leave early. You're not complaining about her leaving early, but guess what? That front desk phone needs to be answered. So you can say, I don't mind coming up to the front desk if I'm given ample time to answer the phones, before our workday ends. There you go. Bring a solution to the situation for something that needs to be addressed, but you don't have to be the one to address it. But it's a problem, right? It needs to be resolved. So you want to make sure that that happens. And I'm talking from experience. Like, these are some of the things that I've seen in my 29 years at Rutgers. So you definitely don't want to be the complainer, but you want to be the person that brings the change. Then interview may be virtual. Yep. So reality, right? You guys are graduating. You may have virtual interviews instead of an in-person interview. Now, with all the laxing of some of the requirements, you may very well have an in-person interview with social distancing. So you might be at the table by yourself and people scattered around the room, which might be a little more anxious, but it may very well happen. Or you may be interviewing virtually. So things to think about. Consider your background. Right now, if you look at my background, it's very inappropriate. This is not a background that you want to have in an interview. I'm sitting on my sofa in my living room. You see the windows. You see, the furniture behind me. You definitely want to make sure that you have a good background. You can take a nice picture of something, Rutgers or something like that. And you want to make sure that the background is appropriate. You want to make sure that there's no distractions. Like when I'm sitting here, I'm snapping my finger on the side at my son because he was making noises and I'm giving him the look. Like, really, dude, I just told you I'm doing a workshop. I need you upstairs. So, you want to make sure that there's no distractions. So if you have children, if you have pets, get them out the room for the time that you're doing the interview, because it's very, very necessary that you make that first impression count. So let family know, hey, I'm doing this interview. Don't call me. Don't stop by the house. Get a babysitter if you can for the kids. Get the pet out of the room. Make sure that you're in a neutral area. Make sure that either you put a background on your Zoom or WebEx or Teams, whatever you're going to be interviewing on, whatever platform. Put a background if you don't have one that's appropriate. You just want to make sure that you checks and balances. You want to make sure that you cross your T's and dot your I's with the background to an interview. Because again, you may very well be doing virtual interviews. All right, so questions. This is the time for you to ask questions. Again, I would suggest you review previous workshops we've already done on the EOF YouTube page. Ms. Ferguson sent out the YouTube link on Canvas, so please go to Canvas to find it. It's there. It was sent recently. Career Center holds mock interviews. So you may want to schedule with Career Center. You guys are on spring break next week. That would be a great time to schedule with Career Center. They actually are open on campus certain days of the week. I know Miss Holman, the director, is there a few days of the week. you want to schedule this mock interview. They literally will have you do a mock interview. They will record you and then they'll play it back and give you some constructive criticism. It is a great feature. If you have not done it, you definitely want to do it. It's free. You know me, I like free. It's free and it's a resource that's available to you that you can certainly take advantage of. And then EOF will be holding speed interviews, seniors, in a couple of weeks. Ms. Ferguson, she will be sending you guys the sign-up sheets for the speed interview. We did this last year. We did it a few years ago when we were on campus. And guess what? Some of the people that interviewed fell apart during the interview. They were not prepared for the interview. So this is why we continue to do this, so that you get practice, so that when you are at a real interview for a position that you are, used to interviewing, you know exactly what to do, what to look for. So make sure when you see that email sent through via Canvas from Ms. Ferguson, that you sign up for the speed interviews. And you're going to be interviewed by people from our office, our department. So you have Dr. Basong, you have Mr. RJ Portella, you have me, Ms. Ferguson, Mr. Jones. There's going to be, Dr. Cordy. There's going to be many people that will be volunteering for speed interviewing and will be available to do this. So you have to sign up. But the difference that we're doing this time is this is going to be a dress rehearsal. So you want to come dressed as if you were actually applying for a position. And so we're going to critique everything. The same way that the Career Center does it, we're going to do the same thing. So again, come dressed for success, dress for the interview, and it's going to be great. We're going to treat it as if you were applying for a position at Rutgers in our department. So you get a chance to really, really interview like if it was for real. So any questions? I'm going to stop sharing so that it comes back to the screen. So I know this was a lot. I hope you took notes. It will be put on the EOF YouTube page, so you'll be able to see it later. Any questions? Any questions at this point?
Hey, Ms. Waters, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Nabil?
I'm well, thank you for asking. I just had a quick question in regards to that PowerPoint was very informational. Is there a way we can get that besides the YouTube link?
It's going to be
Can you
placed
share
on
that?
Canvas.
Okay,
It's going to be on
okay.
Canvas. Yep, Ms. Ferguson, after we're done, I send her the recording and the PowerPoint, and she'll put the recording on the YouTube page and then post the PowerPoint on Canvas.
Okay, that sounds good.
No problem. I hope you
Thank
got a lot
you.
out of it.
I did. I'm definitely going to use some of that.
Good, good, good. And go watch the Dress for Success if you didn't watch it last year, because
Okay,
it's really good too.
I will. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Any other questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Go ahead.
So on the speed interview, would that be in person or virtual?
It's virtual.
Oh.
Yep. And so when Ms. Ferguson sends you the link to sign up, it's going to be 20-minute intervals. So you're going to come into Zoom and you're going to be assigned a chat room, and one of the interviewers is going to be in the room with you. So to just you and that person, you'll be required to upload your resume, because the person's going to be asking you questions, right, based on the resume and the job. And so it's like a real interview, but it's going to be virtual, because many of you will be, that's exactly how you're going to be applying for jobs, virtually.
Of course. Okay. I just wanted to know, because I'm really interested on doing it, because I break apart for sure when I go to an interview.
Well, this will be the perfect time. And so you'll see it'll say you can sign up for a spot 12:45 to 1:45. It's not the whole time, but there will be spots during that time. So you may sign up at 1:15 instead of 12:45. So you'll see what's available. Yep. And we're doing it 2 days in a row, I believe.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome. Does anyone else have any questions? So I know I gave you a lot, right? So exhale, seniors, you're getting ready to graduate. Yay. We're getting ready to go out there and be productive members of society, taxpayers like the rest of us. So, we are definitely wishing you well, and we're trying to prepare as much as we can to get you guys the skills and to enhance the skills you already have to get you guys, out there in the real world. So if you think of anything after we're done, like, oh, I should have asked her this, I'm going to make sure that I provide my email. I'm also going to give you guys the attendance instructions. All right. So my email is in the chat. Please write it down if you don't have it. And so if you have any questions, definitely email me. If you go to Canvas and you're like, shoot, I still can't find that darn PowerPoint, let me know. I mean, I can certainly send it to you. But again, Ms. Ferguson will put it on there. Okay, so for attendance today, please send me your full name and RUID. That's all I need. Full name and RUID. And make sure that it's by 5 p.m. today, because I have to create an attendance for the counselors. So my email, cfelice@camden.rutgers.edu, your full name and your RUID by 5 p.m. today. So I can enter that into Raptor Connect and create a report. All right. So unless there's any other questions, we're good. Again, I know I gave you guys a lot. I hope you learned something. I'll see you at the next one. Take care, everybody.